recording now. Let me move the controls out of my way and we're going to get started on building blocks. Okay, building blocks are kind of fun little things, and I get a question all the time about where are my building blocks? Well, your building blocks are always in the program, but you can close that little bar to give yourself a little more work room, especially if you have a smaller computer screen. But to get to your building blocks, just go up to View and Toolbars, and you'll see the building block bar. Just click on that and put a check mark next to it. It's going to open up down here. Now there are some built-in building blocks, which are these small letters. And there's some banners, and there's some basting blocks, and there's some borders and buttonholes and, cameos and decorative, buttonholes, decorations, edges, floral, and if you've added things, then you've got options to add building blocks, right? And there's insects, miscellaneous. This is actually a free download from our website on the miscellaneous bar that I have here, which are for breast cancer support. And there's my blocks, seasonal, and I have some different things here because I've been kind of playing with different building blocks, but I wanted to show you how to manage these building blocks. So let's start with this. Let's start with what they can do. So I'm going to go over to my decorations. And what I can do with building blocks is left click and press and hold and drag and drop the building block onto the screen, and then click on generate to create the stitches. Or I can drag and drop as many as I want. What I can do is resize these, and of course once I generate, it recalculates my stitches for me. Now something like this building block, which has satin stitching, if I resize it, I'm going to have to maybe make some changes to this, like this section here and this section here are a little bit too wide. So I might have to go into my settings and either break the long stitch or apply a fill depending on how wide that is. But I can do just about anything to these building blocks. I can change the colors, I can delete pieces, I can edit them, I can reshape them. Anything that I can do to a design in Generations, I can do to these building blocks. So that's, just drag and drop. Just drag and drop it on your screen, size it to whatever you want, generate to recalculate stitches. So that's kind of the basics of building blocks. Now, if I double left click on a building block, I get this little wireframe, and what it's letting me do is to place these things. You can see I have like these little nodes on each side, and if I left click, that places this like an anchor, and I can move my mouse and rotate this around to any position I want. If I place a second left click, that places the design. Now, if you saw what happened, let me go ahead and delete that and start that section over. If I, left click, right, I'm still in wireframe. And if I just left click, it immediately moves over to the next wireframe, letting me place this. And if I just keep left clicking, I will place these on a line. If I right click, it flips this around. So I can left click and then right click to flip this. And I still have the option to rotate. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and place this one. Now, I don't have to just go in a line. I can actually move these anywhere I want. And, of course, rotate in any fashion that I want. And this is going to keep allowing me to input, any way that I want until I press the escape key. So, I've put in multiple building blocks, and they're all individual things. Each piece is editable individually, right? So let me go ahead and get rid of these. And let's go ahead and, we'll use this one. I'm going to use number 6 and just double left click to select it. And you can see I can go ahead and just left click and place this. And I'm just left clicking to place, left clicking. And you can see it just kind of lines them up, right? So I'm going to press escape now. So I've got several of these in a row. Well, each piece is individual, so if I want to change something, I can, or if I want to edit, I can. But what else I can do is I can select all of these building blocks by left-clicking and dragging around them, or by going to Edit, Select, Select All. And you can see they're all selected with the bounding boxes. And here's open bounding boxes and then the solid ones indicating that they're not grouped together. And we don't necessarily want to group them together just yet. We're going to use one of the tools in the program from the Align bar. So, I've got these multiple items placed, and I'm going to, have them selected by either left-clicking and dragging around them or edit, select all, so that I can come down here and align these objects. And you can see I can align them all to their left or to the right, tops or bottoms, and that wouldn't necessarily be beneficial. But aligning them, in this case, not their vertical center, but their horizontal centers, might be something I need to do if I didn't, keep them steady as I place them. The other thing I might want to do is make sure that they're horizontally spaced and even, especially if I didn't, if I wasn't real careful about placing these, right? So now I've got these all lined up and spaced, and I'm going to use a tool called Super Align. The Super Align tool is on your Align toolbar. So when I click on this Super Align, what I get is the Super Align dialog box, and it behaves very much like your text. I can place these on a line, and if you click and look, you have the arc, an ellipse, or freehand. So I have a lot of different options here. So let's go ahead and I'm going to place these on an ellipse. I have these options as above the line, centered on the line, or below the line. For a design like this, above the line or centered on the line would be good. Below the line, would be okay too. But from the lettering lessons, if you've been in the webinars, that, these options sometimes control how things space immediately as well. So I'm going to go ahead and select centered on the line. Then I'm going to say OK. And I'm going to come up here and just left click and hold my mouse button down and drag a circle. If I want an ellipse, I hold the control key and I can drag an ellipse. But in this case, I just want to go ahead and make a quick little circle. So there's my circle. And on this Super Align tool, what I have are the same options that I would have for, pretty much my text pass. This is going to allow me to scale the whole oval or circle. And this is going to let me scale these designs. You can see when they're on the center, it scales them from the center out. Okay? So, what I'm talking about when I say on the center, let's go back in and I'm going to say above the line. Watch what happens when I scale these and they're above the line. Okay, they only scale upwards, right? But if I have them centered on the line, you can also see the difference, in the placement. It's a little bit easier to line them up quickly. It's going to evenly, size these in height above or below the line. So I can actually take this and make this kind of an interesting little design just by rescaling it and hitting generate. Now these little nodes here are like your kerning nodes on lettering. They allow me to just individually move any of these designs. And I'll just move that so you can see what's going on. And I can space these better to make sure that everything's going to line up the way I want. So that is the Super Align tool. Right, let me go ahead and get rid of that. And now what's kind of interesting with the Super Align tool is if you guys ever do these buttonholes, you can make a buttonhole run and you can space those as well. So let me go ahead and I'm going to look at the decorative buttonholes. And we'll go ahead and go with this butterfly. So if I know that I want like 3 decorative buttonholes, right? And I'm just going to go ahead and space them out like this. And press escape to turn those off. Okay, now if I left click and drag and select all of these, I can center them and then I can space them. All right, so there's space, and that's kind of important to do first. But let me go ahead and use the Super Align tool, and I'm going to place them on a line. We'll go ahead and center them on a line again and say OK, and there's my line. Well, if I need to make this, whoops, let me undo that. Let me kind of go back. I forgot to draw my line. I was so busy talking that sometimes I forget to do what I'm supposed to do. So let me go back. Okay, so there they are. So we're going to Super Align, and we're going to place them on a line, and I say, okay, well, if I know that they need to be spaced from here to here, or if I want to space them, within the width of a hoop, I can draw this line and they're going to automatically space the way I want. And if you're wondering what they are, let me change this black color to something that's a little bit easier to see on the screen. These are decorative buttonholes. So when I kind of zoom in here, these are literally buttonholes, decorated with the butterfly, okay? So now I've got them spaced out the way I want them to be spaced. But I've got these colors that are all over the place. So if I want to color sort very quickly, I double left click on this blue, in this case, for the wings, the blue color chip at the top, double left click real fast, and I select all of those blue color chips. In my film strip over here, all I have to do to sequence them is right click, move to top, and now these are color sorted. And then just regenerate to put your trims in so that you have, these designs spaced and, you've got them color sorted as well. All right, so those are kind of the basics of what you can do with building blocks and, what you can do with the decorative buttonholes. I've had a lot of questions about how do you space. Well, if I want to space buttonholes, I can go to View and View Preferences and select my hoop. And I'm going to go ahead and I'll pick we'll pick this hoop and go horizontal. And I always forget to click on Show Hoop, but no worries because I've got this hoop icon up here. Let me kind of zoom way out here. So there's my grand hoop or my extra large hoop. And if I want to do buttonholes, then what I can do is say, well, here's my butterfly again, double left click, and maybe I know that I want 4 buttonholes. I can just place these, and I don't have to be perfect about it, as long as I get them placed, right? So I want 4 buttonholes. I just left click and drag all of these, around all of them, or I go to Edit, select all. Now use these align tools. Use your align center and use your space. So now they're all spaced evenly. And why that's important is, that's going to determine how they get spaced originally on the line. Then use your super align tool. Our path will be a line. We're going to center these. Say OK. And draw your line. If you want the butterflies to go from here to here in your hoop, if that's the size that you know that you need, then just draw the line and you can space those out automatically. Okay, so those are just some of the things that we can do with the building blocks and the buttonholes that are included in the building blocks, not to mention some of the other building blocks that are there. Can you guys hear me, or did we completely lose the sound? Can you guys hear me at all? Because I did not. Okay, good. I did not get the degrading audio sound, so I think I'm okay on this end. It might just be on your end over there if you've lost sound, okay? All right, so we're good. All right, so those are some basics on the building blocks, and these are the building blocks that come in the program. Now, what the beauty of the building blocks is this. I can turn anything into a building block, and I can save it on my screen. I can also add building blocks, either building block sets or, if I have maybe a monogram font that I'm using all the time, I can actually pull in those letters and then keep them on a building block so I can just pull them out. Okay, so it's kind of like a little storage facility too. But if I want to control the tabs on these building blocks, like for example, if I don't want to keep this miscellaneous tab here, I can actually right click on it and say hide it or delete it. If I want to keep those and I want to hide them, I just hide them. Now they're just out of my way. Maybe I don't want to use these florals. Okay, just hide them. And you're thinking, okay, well, great. How do I get these back? Well, same thing. Just come over to one of these and right click and say, you know what? Insert the page. And you're going to get the menu of all your building blocks. And what I hid was the miscellaneous one. So let's go down here. There's my miscellaneous block. And I just say, okay. And there we have them. There's my miscellaneous blocks here. Okay. So now, if I purchase new building blocks and they don't show up here, well, a couple of reasons. One, you probably installed them with your program open. If you close your program and install them, they'll almost always automatically show up here, but no worries. You just right-click on this tab and say Insert Page. And you're going to get your menu, which is where, all of your building blocks are going to install into, right? So, let's see if I can find one that's not on here yet. Oh, I think Fun Leaves is already on there, but yeah, Honeydew Tools, here's one. All right, so there's one. There's, a new building block that I've just installed. And, again, if I don't want to see it, I can just hide the page. If I really want to be rid of it, I can delete the page. And when I delete the page, I come in here and I go to insert the page. Ladybug Whims is still going to be there, the one that I deleted, right? So hiding it and deleting it are kind of the same thing. All right? So if I want to add them, I just say okay, and there's my Ladybug Whims again. All right, so does that make sense to you guys on the building blocks and how to control them and, what you can do with them? I mean, building blocks are really kind of fun. They can be just like a one-time thing. Or, if I want to make a border, then, just double-click and just keep entering the ladybugs. Or whatever design you're using from your building blocks. I have a question about if you can use the built-in building blocks for designs that you sell. Not really. And the building block design sets the same thing. You can use them on articles that you're selling within limited, like not a commercial kind of embroidery thing, right? Within reason, like, so you can use the actual stitch outs of these building blocks on items that you sell. You can't incorporate them into designs and sell them as design sets, okay? Carol's asking how you reorganize these into kind of alphabetical order, and really what you'd have to do is just reorganize them. If you install them, when you install new ones, generally, if the program's closed, they kind of end up in alphabetical order. You can see mine are in pretty much alphabetical order because I installed them with the program closed and automatically sorts them. When I add something, though, I would have to really kind of move these around. But, at the same time, is it really that big of a deal? Could be. It could be. But, if I'm hiding something like, if I hide a page, right? Let's try this. If I hide the page, when I come back and say and insert the page, right? I just hit honeydew. Let's see what that does if it puts it back in place. I think it puts it at the end still. So, it doesn't always put them in alphabetical order. That is one of the requests I've had, is if we could sort them or we could drag and drop the tabs like in a future update. But for right now, they kind of end up there. If you close your program when you install new building blocks, then they automatically sort. They just automatically, open up in your program in alphabetical order. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense. All right, so what the beauty is of building blocks is this. Let me go ahead and close this. Anything I make in the program can be saved as a building block. So, or anything I import into the program, like I mentioned, a monogram font. If you've purchased a monogram font, or you purchased a design that you use in quite a bit, and you hate to go import it all the time, you can actually just save it on your building block and bring it in. It doesn't turn it into a gen file or give you, you can still edit imported files, but it's not going to turn it into an outline file just because you saved it onto the building blocks. What it does is just make it a little more accessible to you so that you don't have to open your program all the time. Okay, sorry, I was just kind of reading some questions. I had a question about why we don't delete the building blocks. The reason is because these generally have been purchased. So, or they're a piece of the program, and if I hate to say it this way, but if people could just right-click and delete them, I can promise you I would get an email from somebody wanting to be able to download those. So they're not really deletable. You can go into your file folders and delete them if you really want to from your C drive, but you can at least take them out of your way on your screen. So if you want to delete them, there's always a way to do it. You're just not going to be able to delete them from within the program. Okay, now the other question I had was about a text thing, and the Superalign tool works for everything. If it's already in text and you haven't ungrouped it, then you can't use the Superalign tool. You have to use the text paths because these are very similar to the text paths. This is an array tool. So when you hear the word array, you know this is an array tool. We just kind of give you some different options on the array. All right, so let's talk about what we can do with the building blocks. Okay, I mentioned importing a design file. So if I had a font or a monogram frame that I really wanted, I could put it on the building block and just open it up and drag and drop it every single time. If you have the full version, you can also save it into your monogram frames and open it up anytime. Or I'm going to go ahead and just open up one of these, and I'm going to say I want a name, and I'm just going to kind of backspace over so there's really no name here. And I'm going to go to one of my modern frames. We'll just kind of pick one of these. And I'm going to say, okay, so all I'm inserting really, I guess I inserted the A so I can get rid of that, is this modern frame, right? So here's my modern frame. I can make any editing to these monogram frames. You guys know that. So if I want to say enable satin fill, and I don't want the random stitch length, I'm going to select a pattern, and I'm going to make this wavy. Then, I can make whatever change I want to this. I'm just kind of using this as an example. So if I make some changes, I can do a couple of things with this. The building blocks and the monograms are very similar. They are both editable, and they're both in an MTF format, which is an editable format. So what I could do is say accessories and monogram background, save the background. So I could save this as a monogram background as well. So, I just go over to my modern frames, and I could save over top of the frame, which is MO11, or I could say, MO11A, and save that change, right? So that's now going to be in my monograms. Let's go and look at the monograms real quick, and we'll go to the modern frames. And there's MO11. I might have to read, there's 11A right there. Okay, so that's my new monogram frame, right? So I'm going to close this. However, if I want to save this to, to any one of the tabs here, or to a new tab here, I can do that. I can save it to a building block as well. I can just go to accessories, building block, save my building block. And I'll go ahead and save it in my miscellaneous building blocks. And you have to give it a name. It kind of defaults, and I don't want to write over top of this. So MO11A. We'll just name it the same thing. Now, when I go to the miscellaneous tab, there it is. So it's there for me to grab and drop any single time, which sometimes is a little bit quicker than the monogramming, right? But there's kind of a catch with building blocks. Let me go ahead and show you what I mean. I'm going to go ahead and insert just a quick image. Hopefully a quick image. I guess I'm going to be a little bit slow in opening these. And let me get two here. All right, so let's grab the butterfly real quick. And we'll just go ahead and auto-generate the butterfly. All right, so there's the butterfly, and there's the butterfly picture behind it. You guys, let me change my screen color so you can see a little bit better. Hold on. Going to change it to a yellow color so you can see what I'm talking about. See the picture behind that? Because I auto-generated, everything's grouped together, and that includes the picture. So if I say accessories, building block, save my building block, and I save it in the miscellaneous folder, and I'm just going to name this butterfly 01, and I save it there and say okay. If I have that miscellaneous tab open, it does not show up here until I click on another tab and come back. So there's my butterfly. So let's open a new folder, and I'm going to drag and drop the butterfly and generate. It saves the background too. So anything that's in the file, whether it's a background or if I would type in the word, butterfly. Okay, if I did this and I said, oh, hey, I really like this. I want to save this butterfly, as a building block. Right-click and dragging around, it's not going to save this as a building block. It will, but it's going to save everything in it. So let's go to building block, save the building block, go back to the miscellaneous, and I'm going to name this butterfly 1A. All right, so let's click off of this and go back to my miscellaneous tab, and I'm going to delete everything on the screen. Okay, so now I have a nice blank screen. So here's the butterfly. If you thought you were just saving the design, here's the lettering as well. So anything that's in the file when you save the building block is going to be saved with the building block, right? And if you notice, it kind of groups everything together, right? So you need to ungroup. I'm going to get rid of that. And here's my original butterfly. And let me regenerate. There's my original butterfly, and it's got the image behind it, and I really didn't want to save the image. So what I need to do is ungroup. The image disappears, and before you click off on anything at all, group. Now remember, just because we didn't generate the white background, that's also still in the design. So you're going to want to, not necessarily generate this, right? But, I grouped these. Let me group these together. So they're all grouped, but I'm going to want to right-click here to select that background section and press Control and Delete. And if you have a lot of little openings, you might want to find the main portion that's white and right-click and drag around the design and generate. So you can come over to your film strip here, click on the, right-click off to the side, click on your color chip, and press Control Delete to remove those white areas. Remember to regenerate. And now when I go to accessories and I say building blocks, save my building block, and I select miscellaneous and I name it butterfly 1B, what I get is just what I wanted. I just get the butterfly. Let me see what that's butterfly. That might be the original one. Yep. Okay, here's my butterfly 1B. All right, so now you're wondering, how do you get rid of these things right here, right? How do I get rid of those? Well, I could rename them, or I can go to my, my computer drive. I can go down to, my C drive, locate your SuperTech folder, your generations folder, and here's my building block folder. Just go down to your miscellaneous blocks, and there's butterfly 1 and 1A. Just left click and select them and press delete. And if you don't have the icon, don't worry. You can see there's an MNG file. Those are the building blocks. I'm going to go ahead and close this down now and show you what I did. There's the only butterfly I have now, and I know it's the correct one. So that's how you get rid of them for good. Sandy's asking if you saved a design into the building blocks, it's kind of faster. Yeah, if you're going to use something all the time, like for example, maybe you have the perfect little flower that you just love and you know that you're going to use this through this design that you're making multiple times. Well, save it and then just drag and drop it into place. And, you can always get rid of it. Go into your C drive and get rid of it if you want, but it makes it much quicker rather than saying File, Open, finding the file that has the design or the piece of the design that you want, and then copying and pasting it out of it, copying it and then pasting it into the file. You just put it on the building block and just drag and drop it. Okay? So now, one of the fun things about building blocks is, really, you can make a whole design set. It depends on which one you have. you know, this is more of a design set in the building blocks, right? But there are some that are, modular, like winter ice. I don't think I have winter ice installed in here, but winter ice was kind of a modular thing. Let me see if I have that there. Oh yeah, if you want to make a new page, by the way, add a page. I just added a folder. Okay, so let me see if I do have winter ice. Some of you who upgraded a couple of years ago ended up with winter ice. Let me see what I've got in here. I don't think I have that one. But winter ice is a very modular system. So, some of these are set up to be modular. Some of them are set up to be decorative. Some of them are set up to be, individual designs. Like, for example, the edges. If I double click on one of these and say, okay, here's my edge, as long as I don't move my mouse, I can get these lined up pretty good to create a decorative rickrack edge, right? And I can make this as big as I want. If I don't move my mouse and I just left click, I can make a continuous border with some of the designs until I'm done and press escape. Right? So even the larger designs like this, are going to give me the same option, right? See how they line up? Even if I right click, I could do that as well if I want, or I can continue to make them like this. So if you have like individual pieces of something, these are just individual things until I double click and start combining them together. See? So, you have a lot of options here. Some scallops, this is a little bit bigger border. And you can right click if you want to place them this way, just right click and align them. So you can make some very large borders with some of these. The same thing with the decorations or, anything that you can save like this. They don't have to be full designs. All right? So do you guys have any questions so far about the building blocks? Ramona made a comment that is great. What she did was she created a full building block set using an alpha font that she had purchased. So when she wants to use the letter, she just pulls it up from the building block and puts it in there rather than importing and copy and paste. And she just uses them as she needs them, and they're right at her fingertips. So if you have like design sets or monogram borders or things that you've purchased that you use quite a bit, why not keep them on your building block bar and just pull them in as you need them? For those of you who are commercial embroiderers, if you make the perfect registration symbol or trademark symbol, or you have something that you knew you're going to use a lot for one of your customers, save it on a building block bar. And then you're not hunting that file down or you're not redoing the work all the time. So that's, besides just fun, the building blocks are very functional. I enjoy building blocks, and to be honest, if I'm in the middle of working on something, sometimes I'll just throw something into, like something like, my blocks or whatever, and pull it up so that it's easy, to play with. Like, for example, here's a spiral I was playing with, and, here's another spiral I was playing with. Those are in, I think in my blocks, because I was just playing around with those, right? But, something like this, you could come in and save these little pieces and make something quite fun. Okay? And you can use your align tools because each building block is an individual entity, but you still have the ability to edit this. Okay, I could go into my settings and I could say, wow, really, I think I just want to make this a run, or I want to make it a triple run and make it really bold, and I can resize this. I can just left click on it, resize, center. As long as I have everything selected, I guess I can center this, right? And regenerate to recalculate my stitches anytime I want. Ann's asking if there's a size limit to the building block. No, there's not. You're going to be limited by the resources on your computer, but no, you can make anything into a building block. You can take a whole design and turn it into a building block. Just remember that everything that's in the file becomes a building block, which sometimes comes in handy. For example, like if you make this perfect spiral, right? And I'm going to change this to a darker color just so you can see. And we'll change this to a different color. So if I make this and I want to keep this as a building block, you know, I've got this piece and this piece, but hey, I really like this. I'm going to use it all the time. I can save this as well. Building block, save building block. It's in my block, spiral 1, spiral 2, you know, spiral 1_2, right? Whatever you want to name it. And there is no limit to size, and I'll show you that in a second. So there you go. Anytime I want to use that, now it's there. Okay, now one of the sets that, you know, we have, or we actually gave, I think, as a freebie a couple of years ago was the honeydew set, right? I'm at 100% right now, but I'm going to zoom out to 75%. That's a pretty big hammer, right? So there's no size limit. You know, the paint roller I think is about the same size. It's pretty good size. The saw, you know, so there's no limit to the size. They don't have to be small little elements. They can be whole designs. All right, do you guys have any questions before I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording so the video's not too big?